Hey everyone, welcome back. Javi here. Today in this video, I want to offer some strategies for releasing lower back pain and opening up the hips. So this area of the body is our physical center. We call this area the dantian. However, the hips and the pelvic bone actually cradle the torso and the upper body and hold the upper body upright. So the hips really are responsible for holding the torso upright. When the head, think of a baby when it's struggling to hold its head and they have to garner up the strength to hold the head. We also have to garner up the strength, learn to hold the torso and the body upright. We're always fighting gravity. So now, what does this do? It really puts a lot of strain and pressure, especially if we're standing, even sitting, holding the torso upright. The hips still have to hold the torso's weight. So now, what does this do? If these muscles are constantly engaged, constantly holding, constantly tight, there is not allowed any release, any stagnation or congestion to facilitate out and blood flow. Without blood flow, there's no energy flow. Without blood flow and energy flow, there's no cell replacement. Cell replacement allows for waste to get discharged and for new blood and energy to come in and repair damaged tissues. So what do we have to do? We have to go in and we have to facilitate this movement for ourselves. And we have to learn to relax the tissues to slowly open up within movement so that we can offer the conditions for the cell replacement. Now, if you do a massage or something like that or stretching, all of those strategies are great. What we're going to look at today are movement strategies of the tailbone and of the pelvis and this area, like I said, to release lower back tension, release it down, and then also to open up the hips. The femur's attachment into the pelvis bone is what we're really working in to open up all of these tissues around the lower back, the hip flexors, deep inside the groin, and these attachments, hamstrings attachments, and the glutes as well. So really focusing, concentrating on this zone, this area. What we're going to be using are patterns coming from Tai Chi to help us visualize and stay consistent with movement. So the patterns we're going to look at are the infinity symbol, the yin-yang symbol, and the Tai Chi spiral, along with the basic circle. So, first and foremost, we want to get sides and we want to get corners. What I'm going to ask you to do is keep the mind attention and focus on your tailbone. Try to get a sense of your tailbone, where it is. If you need to put your hand there, then that might help too as well. You're basically, down in the pelvic, we call the pelvic floor area, okay? So let's say you want to move the pelvis forward and you want to move the pelvis back. You move the pelvis forward and back. Now you move it to the side, you move it to the other side. These are basic sides that we will eventually round off to make a circle. What you want to first get used to is pointing the tailbone. So this is what we do. We point the tailbone to my left, you'll turn to your right. And then I'll go to my right, you'll turn to your left. We're mirroring each other. Okay? We go back and we go forward. How do we go forward? We tighten up the glutes, the buttock muscles. That's what helps us go forward. And we kind of push down into the ground as well. We can go back, like if we're arching the back, sticking the butt out. If that helps you get connected to your tailbone, then stick the butt out and do that. So here's what we can do. We can point to the front, we can point to the back, point to the side, other side, and we can even point to the toes. I'm pointing to my right toe. You can point to your left toe. I'm pointing to my left toe. You can point to your right toe. We can point to the back heel, point to the back heel, other side. And now we start to get a little bit of a 45-degree angle. If I point to my toe, it gives me a 45-degree angle. Let's say I go catty corner opposite, back to the back heel. I point in the opposite direction. Front to my left toe, you could do your right, and then opposite that, your left heel, right? So now we have all of these directions in which we can point the tailbone. Take a second and point your tailbone in any number of these directions in any combination, right? Great. So another thing that you'll want to do is with your base, with your legs, is soften your knees. Soften your knees, soften your ankles as well, and allow the body to sit comfortably. This is what we call a high horse stance. Horse stance is if you're riding a horse. And so now what we do is we take the weight of the torso, the weight of the upper body, into mostly the thighs. So this also takes time to get the thighs acclimated to your weight in the torso. If you stand up straight, you have this straight line where now the lower back and hips are holding the torso's weight. If you bend your knees, now you have this area here, this zone, the thighs, where the body's weight is being held. This is going to help us to loosen up the hips and also the lower back. And like I said, we use the tailbone for steering. Okay, so remember that. Now, let's go to our patterns. We're going to start with the basic circle. Okay, so what we're going to do is imagine the circle on the floor. If we were to look down, if you look down at your feet, imagine that circle. And it's connected and it's made by all of those points that you have made in the front, in the back, in the heels, in the sides, and in the toes. Now you round off all those sides and you make a circle. So now you're circling the hips. Okay. One thing I should mention also is that what you're trying to do is isolate the pelvic region. So one thing I try to do is keep the rest of my spine upright and fixed. And so this really needs a bump, let's say a bump of the hips to the side and then also forwards. You really feel the lower back rounding out. Right? And then when you go back, you feel your butt sticking out. Okay, so it helps if you can, if you want to, place your hands at the abdomen and the lower back. Stick your butt out. Notice how I bend my knees, and then the butt comes in, pelvis forward. So let's return to our circle. Let's return to our circle. From the circle, what we're going to do is then go to the spiral. And what I'm going to ask you to do is visualize a spiral that goes inward from the circle. Now what you're going to do is spiral inward to the center. So you're looking at this circle down on the ground, and now you see the spiral going into the circle. If it helps, you're pointing the tailbone to the circle, pointing the tailbone to the spiral as it goes into the center. You're basically drawing with the tailbone. Now when you get to the center, notice this fixed position, this fixed point, this area and zone of stillness. Okay, now what we're going to do is again visualize the spiral, and we're going to change directions, and the spiral is now going to start from this center and spiral out to our large circle. So I'll start with small circles. Helps to look down. I'll start with small circles until I eventually spiral out. And now I'm making these large circles, and it's basically now just a large circle going back to that circle pattern. Helps to look down and visualize that circle with the tailbone drawing that circle, repeating that circle. Now, your legs might start to feel a little bit fatigued or tired. The thigh zone, that's normal, that's okay. And that takes some getting used to. What you're also doing is facilitating blood flow in the thigh, building up the thigh muscle. And as they are one of the largest muscles in the body, you're helping to pump the heart and also the lungs. So it's really good for your cardiovascular and also your lung health anytime you pump the legs. So we're going back to our circles. If you like, you can continue to spiral inward and go to the center. We'll repeat that again so you get used to it before we move on to the other patterns. Circle in until you reach the center. Try to find that central point. Stop, hold a second. Try to find a sense of calmness, a sense of stillness. And then from the center, from that fixed point, start with small circles spiraling outward. Remember, we're just trying to isolate the lower pelvic zone and region using the tailbone to draw these, right now, spirals outward until we reach the large circle. What we also want to do is coordinate with our breath. What I do in our classes is help you to layer on the breath regulation so that the breath and the body move in harmony along with the mind, creating this nice triad for Qigong. Great. So now we've established the circle, we've established the sides and angles and points, and we've also drawn the spiral in and drawn the spiral out. Now we're going to get a little bit more complex. We're going to draw the yin-yang symbol. And now what that's going to do is provide all of this diversity, all of this range of movement to open up the hips using circular Tai Chi pattern and movement. Now, first what you have to do is visualize the yin-yang. The good thing about that is that it is encased in a circle. We've already drawn circles, right? And we've already gone both directions and both sides. We've circled to the right, we've circled to the left. Now what we're going to do is learn how to draw the yin-yang with the tailbone. So if we look down on the floor, we see our circle, we can also see the yin-yang. The best way to connect the yin-yang symbol to the circles is to use an S. So we use an S usually at the 12 o'clock or the 6 o'clock, just while you're starting off and trying to get used to it. We initiate an S to help cut through the circle and the center to help us change direction. So if you want to do that, you start at 12 and you draw an S to 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, you can retrace that S back to the 12. So let's take a second and draw some S's with the tailbone. You can think of it as a zigzag if you want. But because we're doing Tai Chi and Qigong movement, we want to keep it circular and round. So I'm going in one direction, drawing this S. Now, I encourage you to try to change the direction and draw the S in the other direction. And it will take some getting used to. You might end up drawing like a W or, just a V or something like that, but it takes some getting used to. The good thing though is that as you're getting acclimated to drawing with your tailbone, you're helping to move back tension down and open up this hip zone, what we call the external qua and internal qua as well. So the outer hip zone and area, inner hip zone and area, along with the back and the front, the lower back. It's great for your organs as well as you squeeze and open this lower abdominal zone, you're also squeezing and massaging the organs as well. So how do those S's feel for you? The next thing that we're going to do is use the S to change directions of the circle, and that's what's going to give us the yin yang. So let's say we're looking down and we're circling now to the left. We're doing counterclockwise circles. What we want to do now is change to clockwise circles. What are we going to do? We're going to initiate an S at the 12 o'clock. When we get to 12 o'clock, now we're going to start circling in towards the center. Draw an S. When we get to 6 o'clock, we're going in the opposite direction. Now we're going clockwise. Now let's do a change in direction again when we get to the 12 o'clock. Let's initiate an S, so we start to go towards the center, and that takes us to the 6 o'clock. Until now, we're changing direction and going into counterclockwise, circling left, counterclockwise. Let's try an S again, cut towards the center and middle. You get to 6 o'clock, now you're going clockwise. And I'm actually exaggerating the movement. You can do this as large or as small as you like. You can do it very small, subtle, and nuanced. You could do this anytime you're waiting in line, anytime you're waiting for something or you're standing. However, you do got to be cautious of the thighs, right? So if you want, you can stand up straight here, give yourself a shake of the thighs and the hamstrings, just kind of get those, get some blood back flowing into those. And we'll finish with the figure 8. Figure 8, basically, we're connecting the S's, and that's going to give us our infinity symbol. So if I do it for you this way, right, you see the circle, I cut at the 12 o'clock and make an S, and now you can see how that changes directions. I'll do it again at the 12 o'clock, make an S. We also do this in Tai Chi training as well, getting acclimated to full body movement and using this yin yang to connect us to circles, to connect us to spirals. Now we're going to do figure 8, where I just stay in the S's. See how I just stay in the S? Now I omit the large circle, just keeping the figure 8 continuing to pass through center. So now we'll do figure 8, which is basically a vertical infinity symbol. So if we get down into our high horse stance again, and we're pointing the tailbone back to 6, point the tailbone back to 12, tailbone back to 6, tailbone back to 12. We're hitting the front, we're hitting the back, and also the center. But now what we're going to need to do is draw the S's and connect those S's so that we make a figure 8. And that's what's going to give us our infinity symbol. Best thing to do is visualize it on the floor. See the 8 on the floor and draw the 8 with the tailbone on the floor. Great. Now you've got at least 4 different patterns to help use the tailbone to draw down lower back pain, open up the hip zone, warm up the hip area, and especially in the winter season, this is helpful. This is really key to help keep the kidneys also bolstered and functioning well. So I hope that helps you. I hope that is fun as well, and it gets this area, gets this zone open for you. What you'll want to do is supplement with some other strategies. I'll share those in some other videos, and we'll leave it at there for now, just to help you focus on the yin yang, the circle, and the infinity symbol with the tailbone. Until next time, take care, enjoy, and I hope your chi continues to flow smoothly.